Hello, my wonderful AP CSA students. Welcome to another lesson in Unit 4, Data Collections. We are now on Lesson 3, which is going to be covering one-dimensional arrays. If you're new here, I'm Goldie, and I'm here to make AP CSA easy for you to understand. In Lesson 3 today, we are going to be going over one-dimensional array basics. So the very basics of 1D arrays. In Lesson 4, we're going to talk about one-dimensional array traversals, and then in Lesson 5, we're going to be getting into one-dimensional array algorithms. So today is all about the basics, learning all about one-dimensional arrays in Java. So let's dive into first talking about what an array is, because I'm going to pretend like you don't know anything about arrays. Okay, let's talk about what it is and why we might want to start using it in our program. So an array is a special type of object, not the objects that we're used to in object-oriented programming. So I don't want to necessarily equate it with that, but it's just a special type of unit we can use in Java that can hold a fixed number of items of the same data type. Okay. This is going to lead to simpler code as we are getting into larger sets of data. If we have a lot of data of the same type, we would need to create lots of individual variables to hold that data, because so far that's the only way we've been able to work with data in our program is through variables. Okay, so let's say, for example, you had 4 songs, a list of 4 songs that you want to use in your program. So we could represent our 4 songs as individual variables. On our code, we would have to write out 4 separate lines to represent this data. So here's what that might look like. I have song 1, our song. Song 2, Shake It Off. Song 3, All Too Well. Song 4, Red. Okay, so if you know those 4 songs, you know. So I have 4 songs that I want to store in my program, and I'm going to use them throughout my program. All right. So 4 songs. Okay. Yeah, it's a little annoying, but I could handle 4 songs, right? But imagine we had to all of a sudden do this with her entire collection, right? Hundreds or even thousands of songs in your program. You would quickly find that you cannot work with thousands of different variables of the same data type here, right? Of song 1, song 2, song 3, all of those, okay? So what can we do instead? It's so difficult to keep track of all the variables. We need something else when we have large amounts of data. And the solution is an array, okay? Instead, we can represent our 4 songs as an array, where songs, as you see in this picture here, represents our array reference variable. So we just have one variable. Okay, one thing, instead of song 1, song 2, song 3, song 4, where we had 4 variables, now we have one variable. Songs is going to be our array reference variable. And you see it's pointing to those 4 songs that are put together almost in a table-like format. It's kind of how I want you to picture this. It's going to be put into that table of that we call an array. Okay. Each song in an array is called an array element. So our song is going to be this array element. Shake It Off is this array element. All Too Well is this array element, and Red is this array element. So this array has 4 elements, we say, 4 elements. Each array element is assigned a numerical position called an index. So you see how it's almost a one-way table. That's what an array looks like. So whenever you think of an array, I want you to picture a one-way table in your mind. And each of these cells in the table, each array element is going to get an index. In Java, these indexes start at 0 and increase 1 down the list. So our song is going to be in the first position at an index of 0. Shake It Off is going to have an index of 1. All Too Well is an index of 2. And Red is an index of 3. Okay, so it starts at 0 and it increases by 1 as you move across the table. Okay, so I always picture it as a one-way table horizontally. Some people also, they picture it as a one-way table vertically. I just like horizontally. Okay, so it's going to be starting at 0 and go 1 increase from there. Okay. The length of an array, we're going to talk more about this a little bit later on in these notes as well. We'll revisit this fact. The length of an array can be accessed at any time using songs.length. So this is going to be a property we can use with arrays. Songs is our array reference variable, .length. Okay. So it almost looks like a method call, but notice there's no parentheses because it's not a method. Okay? The last index of the array is always songs.length minus 1. Okay? So as we said before, our song is 0, 1, 2, 3. Okay? The length of this is going to be 4. Okay? There's 4 elements. The last index is going to be 4 minus 1, which is 3. And we can see that right here. Okay, so that's the, not the formula necessarily, but that's kind of the general statement for the last element and then the last element index. Okay, last element index and the length of all of the elements. Yeah, that's an array. That's an array. How do we create these arrays in code? Now that we have a picture, it's a one-dimensional table here. How do we create them? They can be created 2 ways, okay? And the way you create them just depends on what you know when you go to create it. Sometimes you know what you want to store in the array, and sometimes you don't know what you want to store in the array, okay? And here we go. If you know the contents of the array when you are ready to create it, you're going to use this syntax I'm going to show you. It's going to start off with the type, meaning if you're storing ints, strings, doubles, booleans, you're going to put the data type. Then you're going to put these open and closed square brackets. No number in them. It's going to open, close square brackets right there to signal that you're creating an array. The name is going to be what your reference is. Okay, so for us, that was songs. It can be anything. It's a variable name. Equal to, and now to list the content that you know, you're going to start with a curly brace. You're going to put what that content is. So if it's a string, you're going to put it in quotes. If it's an int, you're just going to put the integer. A double, you'll just put the double, okay? But you'll separate each of these content pieces by a comma. You'll put however many you have, and then you'll close with the closed curly brace, okay? Each array element separated with a comma, and it has to be the same data type, okay? Java is very strict with its data type. So each array, if you create an array of ints, the only thing allowed in that array are going to be integers. You cannot mix data types like you could in other programming languages, okay? Cannot mix data types. So in our example, we would create an array with 4 songs like this. String, open close brackets, songs equals, and then we would list our 4 songs separated by a comma, and because they're all strings, we want to put them all in quotes. Okay. The other side, if we don't know the contents of the array when we go to create it, we just know we want an array, we use the following syntax. So we still start off with the type. We have to know the type at least, even if we don't know exactly what it's going to hold. We have to know it's going to hold strings or it's going to hold integers. Open close bracket. We have to name it, and then we use this new operator. We repeat the type. We repeat the square brackets, but this time on this side, we construct it using the length. Right? We have to know how long we want our one-dimensional array to be when we go to create it. Okay? In our example, we would create an array with a length of 4, like this. So string songs equals new string 4. Okay? And this is saying, hey, you're going to make a one-dimensional array. It's going to have 4 spaces that are going to hold strings. We just don't know what those strings are yet. Okay? You can also declare on one line and create it on another, like this in this example. Okay? Less common, but you can do it. And I have a couple practice problems for you to go through if you want to pause and try these and press play when you're ready to see the answers, but just working on basic array creation. If we want to create an array called numbers for 10 integer values, this is what that's going to look like. You have to use your primitives, int numbers equals new int 10. If we want to create an array called flags that holds true, false, true, this is what it's going to look like. Boolean, open, close square bracket, flags equals, and now we use the curly braces because we know the values we want it to hold. An array called grades that holds 50 double values. Okay. It's going to look like that. Okay. A few more points to make about these arrays. Once an array is created, the length cannot be changed at all. Okay, you create an array, it's going to be a fixed length, and that's a very important property of an array, and that's one of the big things that's going to make it different from an array list that we're going to learn about in a few lessons. An array has a fixed length. When the array is created with the new operator, the array is filled with the default value of whatever type you created it with. So for ints, if you create a new int array of like 50 values, it's all going to be 0 starting off. A double 0.0 Boolean, they're all going to be false. And the string or a reference, if you create an array of objects, they're all going to be null. Okay. So when you do that new operator and you create a new array, it knows it's going to hold that data type, but it just populates it with those default values until you actually give it the data. Okay. Now let's talk about manipulating arrays, because once an array is created with a new operator, you are no longer able to modify the values using the array creation method. So this is something I see that students always try to do when they first start learning. This is an error. If I create a new array called grades that holds 5 grades, this right here is not how I would give it values. This is an error. This is a syntax error. You can't do this at all, okay? Although students like to think you can. You can't. So if I create a new array of 5 grades, how do I then fill it with values? Okay, we don't do this. So Goldie, how do I do it? Okay, well, we would do this. We use array indexes to access or modify an array's contents after it has been created. Okay, so again, here's what happens. I write this line using the new operator, new int 5. So that says grades is going to be my reference, and it's going to be pointing to an array of 5 spaces, and they get the default values of 0 because it's an int. Okay, so now how do I give that values? How do I give those values? Remember that each of these elements has an index starting at 0, going up by 1. And I do it by using my assignment operator. So I reference grades. So I start off by saying, okay, this is grades. Go to grades, the array grades. Go to element 0, and you want to give it the value of 89. Okay? And you can see that's what's happening in the program. And 0, add 0, 89 is that value. Grades 1 becomes 99, grades 2, 85, grades 3, 82, and grades 4, 93. Okay. So this would be how we give values then to that array. Okay. Now, if your array is thousands of spaces long, you don't want to write out one by one each line. Okay, if it's thousands of spaces long. So we have a quicker way of doing this that involves array traversals that we're going to learn about in the next lesson. Okay, for now we're going to keep it basic here. Okay, so that's ways we can start manipulating arrays, is we can give them values. We can also manipulate array elements using common operators that we know. Okay, so here I give you 4 lines of code using some operators that you might see. What are the contents of grades after the code has executed? Okay, so right here I have the current contents of the array, and we're going to go through each line and see how this changes as we go through. Okay, so this says grade 0 plus equal 5. Okay, what does this plus equal mean? Okay, remember it says take this element, add 5 to it, and then store it back in that element, right? That's what the compound operator means. So currently at 0, we have 89. We're going to add 5 to it, okay, which is 94, and then we're going to store that in grades 0. Okay, so 89 gets replaced with a 94. The rest of the array stayed the same. Okay, nothing else changed in that line, just grade 0. Okay. Now this is saying, okay, grades 1 is going to change. Okay, what's grades 1 going to change into? Well, grades 1, okay, is currently 99. Okay, so grades 1 is currently 99, and you're going to mod it with 2, and then add whatever is at grade 0. Okay, so 99 mod 2 plus 94. Okay, between the mod and the plus, what happens first? Hopefully you said mod. We're deep enough in, right? 99 mod 2 is going to be 1, okay? And then 1 plus 94 is 95, okay? So 95 is what you get on the math expression side, and 95 is going to get assigned to the first element here, okay? So now you see the first element was changed from a 99 to a 95. What kind of curve is that in the grade book? Okay. So that was changed. In the next one, you see grades 2 equals grades 3. Remember, it's just an assignment. What is grades 3? Okay. Grades 3, oops, jumped ahead. Grades 3 is 82. Okay. 0, 1, 2, 3. Grades 3 is 82. So it's saying 82 is going to go at the second index. The second index being this right here. So we're going to replace 85 and it's going to become 82. It's going to get the new value of 82. And then this last one says grades 2 plus 10 is going to be the new value of grades 3. Grades 2 is currently 82. So you're going to have 82 plus 10 to give 92. And 92 becomes the new value. You see how that changed? The new value at the third index. Okay. So that's how we would trace through a manipulation of the array. All right. Now let's revisit length again. To access the length of an array, we use an attribute called length to retrieve the length of the calling array. Now this is an attribute and not a method. Okay, it's a built-in property. It's not a method call, so you're not going to use the parentheses on this. Okay, so unlike string name.length, like when we had a string and you wanted to get how many characters were in that string, that was a method call. But this is array.length. It does not use parentheses. Okay. So for example, if I were to print off grades that we just were dealing with, grades.length, this would print out a 5 because there's 5 grades in there. Okay. Array index out of bounds. I have a few examples of code that are going to cause an array index out of bounds exception. It's a type of error that happens when you try to access an index that does not exist. Okay. So for example, if you try to access grades.length, okay, grades.length, remember grades.length is 5. Okay. So this is 5. There's 5 grades in there. And then in the square brackets here, if you tried to access the 5th index, you would get an array index out of bounds because there is no 5th index. Okay. The indexes go from 0 to 4. There is no 5th index. So because that 5th index doesn't exist, you get an array index out of bounds exception when you run your program. Same thing if you tried negative indexes. Negative indexes are allowed in other languages like Python. They work a little bit differently over in Python. Negative indexes are not allowed in Java. Okay. Same thing with decimal indexes. They are not allowed in Java. Only whole number indexes and only 0 up to the last possible index. Okay. Wow. And that brought us to the end of our array basics. Okay. Again, that is very basics for one-dimensional arrays. In the next lesson, lesson 4, we're going to be covering array traversals. And that's going to start showing us how we can use loops to go through and actually access array elements and create arrays. And then in lesson 5, we're going to be talking about array algorithms and all the fun things we can do with one-dimensional array and their algorithms. Okay? Thank you for sticking with me. If you have liked this video, please hit the like button and subscribe to my YouTube channel for more great AP CSA content. And until then, I will see you in the next video. Thank you guys so much for following along with me today.